Hello, this is Mr. Fish. Sorry I can't be with you today, but here's a lesson to keep you busy while I'm gone. Today's lesson is 8.3, representing linear functions. And the definition here for you, a linear function, or a linear equation rather, is a function whose graph is a straight line. All of the things that we've been working with up to this point, the functions that we've been looking at, writing things in function notation, determining whether things were functions or not, all of them have been kind of leading us to this point where we're going to begin graphing things. So today we'll look at some equations, and every one of the equations that we'll look at will be an equation that represents a straight line. And we'll learn how to, a couple of different ways that we can graph those lines during this chapter. But today we'll look at sort of the most basic way to graph linear equations or linear functions. The first thing that we're going to have to do, and you'll need to do this on your homework, we're bringing back the function table that you've seen before, and you'll be filling out function tables and solving for x and y values. So on the function table, we'll have an x value and a y value, of course. And it says find four solutions for the equation y equals negative 2x plus 1. And that equation goes right here, y equals negative 2x plus 1. And this is exactly like the functions we've been looking at in earlier lessons. We could, instead of writing y equals, we could write f of x equals if we wanted to, and it's the exact same thing. So you're familiar already with how to solve these type of equations or solve these type of functions. And for today's lesson, whenever you have the instructions to find four solutions, there are four preset numbers for the x value that I want you to use. So on every function table, we're going to use these four numbers, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So on your homework, when you have to find four solutions to the equations that you're given on your homework, you'll use these same four numbers, and that just keeps us kind of all on the same page. So later, if you have questions about it, or if we want to grade these things, then I can use these with we'll have a preset way of grading these so that I'll know everybody's on the same page. So once we know what the four values for x are going to be, all we have to do is plug those values into the equation and solve for y. So y equals negative 2 times negative 1 plus 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2, and positive 2 plus 1 is 3. We'll do the same thing for each of the values on the graph. So y equals negative 2 times 0 plus 1. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Y equals negative 2 times 1 plus 1. And so negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. And then finally, y equals negative 2 times 2 plus 1. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, and negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. And this one is done. We don't need to do any other work. We found the four solutions, and we have all of the x and y values that we need for this one. Let's look at a couple more examples before we move on. The equations will sometimes look a little different than the last one looked. Again, we're going to find four solutions. So this is the x value. This is the y value. Write the equation in the center here, x plus y equals negative 3. I'm going to use the same four values for x, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. And just substitute. Negative 1 plus y equals negative 3. Some of these take more of a form of an equation you might need to show some work on to get your solution. If you write negative 1 plus y equals negative 3, you know how to solve this. Just add 1 to both sides of the equation, and y equals negative 2. our next equation, substitute 0 in for x, so 0 plus y equals negative 3. And of course, if we're adding 0 to something, it's the same. It's going to end up being the same number, so this one's pretty easy to see that the answer will be negative 3. This one will be 1 plus y equals negative 3. And we can solve that by subtracting 1 from both sides. So y equals negative 4. And then 2 plus y equals negative 3. And to solve this one, of course, we would subtract 2 from both sides. Negative 3 minus 2 is going to be negative 5. You may notice that you begin to see a pattern down this side, which is exactly what you should expect if you'll think back to the last couple of lessons that we've done on sequences and how those sequences with repeating difference or the repeating pattern showed up in the y column as we were looking at those over the last couple of days. One more example, and this one has a little different equation. X is negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. The equation is 2x plus y equals 9. And the y value goes here. So 2 times negative 1 plus y equals 9. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So negative 2 plus y equals 9. We would need to add 2 to both sides. Y equals 11. 2 times 0 plus y equals 9. And since we multiply 2 and 0, that's 0 plus y, and 0 plus 9 would equal 9. This one would be 2 times 1 plus y equals 9. We need to subtract 2 from both sides, so y equals 7. And then finally 2 times 2 plus y equals 9. 2 times 2 is 4. Subtract 4 from both sides, and y equals 5. You do need to completely fill out the table on every one of the problems that you'll do today on your homework. There really are no shortcuts for this. This is kind of a tedious process, but that's okay. It's not going to hurt you to show your work on these. Once you've done this section of your homework where you need to find the 4 solutions and fill in the function table, you're also going to have a section of your homework where you'll need to graph these equations. And that's going to look like this. So back here on the first slide, we did this equation where we had y equals negative 2x plus 1. And here on this slide, I've just copied in that information. Same function, the same information in the table, the same x and y values. And now all we're going to do is use the x and the y values to graph this equation. So we would graph it. The first one is negative 1, 3. The next point is 0, 1. Then we have 1, negative 1. And then we have 2, negative 3. And the whole point of what we're doing is that when we get these 4 points graphed, there should be a straight line that connects all 4 dots. If you don't have a straight line, then you either have graphed it wrong or you have found the incorrect solutions. And so when you finally have your points graphed, you should be able to draw a straight line that goes from the edge to edge of the graph, and it crosses all 4 of those points that we graphed. So every one of these 4 ordered pairs falls on that line, and we can stretch that line from edge to edge of the graph. And what this line represents is every possible set of ordered pairs that would belong on this chart. We could look here and see that the next point here would be negative 2, 5. And then we would have a negative 3, 7 and a negative 4, 9. And those points all fall on this graph, but not only the points that fall on the whole numbers, but also any fractions or any decimals that fall in between. We would be able to pick out a point right here in the middle of a square. And if we could find the right decimal for the x value, then it would match the decimal value for the y coordinate right there as well. So this line represents every possible answer, every possible pairing of numbers that could be used to meet the requirements of this function. So you'll be doing this on your homework as well. Let's look at just a few more examples of what this is going to look like. And whenever you draw, on the ones where you need to draw a line, where you need to graph it, you don't have to find 4 solutions, but I do want you to find 3 solutions on the tables. And I've just given you the same graphs or the same function tables, but you only have to fill in 3 of the values. So you'll fill in a -1, a 0, and a 1 as the 3 values to find, to graph the coordinates to get your line. And the reason I want you to do 3 is because you could do 2 of them, and if you make a mistake on one of them, you'll have a nice straight line that connects those 2 dots, but you won't know if you have the right line or not. If you do 3 of them, and they all 3 fall on the same line, then you can be pretty sure that you have the correct line. But if you do 3 variables, 3 x values, and you end up with one that's over here and one that's over here and one that's over here, well, there's not a straight line that connects all 3 of those, so you know you've done something wrong. So you can go back and check your math. Find 3 solutions and graph those 3 points, and then connect the dots from edge to edge of the graph. So let's look at a couple of examples. X equals 3 minus y, and we have a -1 in for x. -1 equals 3 minus y, and this is one, I put this one in here on purpose to give you a little reminder of how to solve equations like this. -1 equals 3 minus y, and we need to subtract 3 to get it away from our variable, so subtract 3 from both sides. -1 minus 3 is -4, and -4 equals -y. Now hopefully you realize that there's a problem with having a negative variable. This is not a negative y that we want to find right here, it's a positive y. And so since I have a negative y, I need to remember this last step of multiplying both sides of my equation by -1. Multiply by -1 on both sides, and we have 4 equals y for this value right here. We'll do the same thing. 0 equals 3 minus y. So 0 equals 3 minus y, and solve it. Subtract 3 from both sides. -3 equals -y. I can't have a -y, so multiply by -1. And +3 equals y. And then 1 equals 3 minus y, so 1 equals 3 minus y, subtract 3 again, -2 equals -y, and when we multiply by -1, the answer becomes positive. So it's a +2. Graph the 3 points, -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 3, and 1, 2, and then don't forget to draw the line. If all you do is graph those 3 points, then you won't get all the credit for this one or for any of these, because we're not graphing points, we are graphing lines. And so make sure that your line goes from edge to edge of the graph. Okay, we've got a couple more examples. Here's one that looks a little different. Remember the 3 values, since we're graphing this one, the 3 values we need are -1, 0, and +1. -2x plus 2y equals 4. Substitute a -1 -2 times -1 is +2 plus 2y equals 4. Subtract 2 rather from both sides, 2y equals 2. Divide by 2 and y is 1. Negative 2 times 0 plus 2y equals 4. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, so 2y equals 4. Divide both by 2 and y equals 2. And this one will be negative 2 times 1 plus 2y equals 4. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 plus 2y equals 4. Add 2 to both sides. 2y equals 6. Divide by 2, and y is 3. Graph the 3 points, negative 1, 1, 0, 2, and 1, 3. And then draw the graph, or draw the line that goes from edge to edge of the graph through all 3 points. One more example. Negative 4x plus y equals 4. So we'll have negative 1, 0, and 1. Negative 4x plus y equals 4. Negative 4 times negative 1 plus y equals 4. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Plus y equals 4. Subtract 4 from both sides, and y equals 0. Negative 4 times 0 plus y equals 4. Negative 4 times 0 is 0, so all you have left is y. Y equals 4. And then negative 4 times 1 plus y equals 4. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 plus y equals 4. Add 4 to both sides. Y equals 8. So our points are negative 1, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then finally 1, and this is 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 goes off the graph. You're going to have 1 or 2 on your homework that do this very thing. They'll go off the edge of your graph. That's okay, just make the point kind of where, about your best guess where it would be if the graph extended out there, and then go ahead and use that for your line. And your line goes through those points. Okay, not terribly difficult homework today. Not a terribly difficult process for what we're doing. Make sure that your graph does have the line that extends from edge to edge. On those that you do, make sure that you're filling out your tables completely. Don't try to take shortcuts and skip out on showing some of this work, because you're going to end up making mistakes. So I know it's going to be a lot of work, but it's just kind of tedious work. It's not difficult work. So don't skip out on it. Here's your homework. It's a worksheet, and you'll have a worksheet with graphs, or rather with tables on it as well, for you to fill in to show all your work. And good luck to you.